take it. Richardson is safe. Derek Jeter ends his final game with a walk-off single.
And days after the captain's 50th birthday, we are back for another episode of the Dog Days of Baseball podcast, episode 7. I am the voice of Generation Pete Rosado, joined by the self-made man Grizz at the top of the pyramid to my left, and down at the bottom of the pyramid, the man who has every reason to gloat after this weekend, the Territorian, as you can see, the Metropolitan fan himself. Alphonse, go ahead, get it out of the way now so we can go through the rest of the show and actually get done with business. Go ahead and gloat.
I would just like to say, Mr. Rosado, sir, you are a graceful loser. You sat in that stadium with me till the very last out on Wednesday, despite your team being down 10 runs. And you kept saying throughout the entire night, I can't wait for the comeback. That never happened.
It almost happened. We were down 6-0, and then we hit that 2-run home run, and I was like, all right, this is going to be it.
But you did not leave with the rest of the Yankee fans who had to make the pitiful trip back to the Bronx.
No, I am a believer, and you stay to the final out. No matter if you're winning or you're losing, you stay until the final out. There's trauma that I have seen other people go through when they leave too early. It's happened in baseball. It's happened in basketball. Grizz, you've seen it. People like, oh, my team's down by X amount of whatever. I'm going to leave. I'm going to avoid the traffic. And then the next thing you know, your team launches an improbable comeback and you're not there.
Sad case.
And there's no re-entry to the stadium. No re-entry once you leave.
You can't come back.
But we are here after what was a very, very gloatful week for Mr. Stevens. Yeah, saw the Mets sweep the first half of this Subway Series between the Mets and the Yankees. The Mets win both games at Citi Field. Sorry about that. Though I will say the field looked a little shitty on Wednesday after that hurricane rainstorm that we sat through, Alphonse.
Don't sit here and blame the rain for why you guys lost. All right, it just we were winning before the rain happened,
and you guys did win after the game, 12-2 on that Wednesday game. Yankees now series against Toronto, 4-game series to take us through the weekend, and the Metropolitans a series against the Houston Astros. But let's talk about it. The Mets and the Yankees are on two different tracks right now. I mean, we spoke a lot about this whole idea of the Yankees had this tough June schedule, and the Mets, didn't really have as much of a June schedule. But, we said this is going to be the one where the Yankees can really, really try to get through it. The Yankees have lost 12 of their last 20 games. I'll say that again. The Yankees lost 12 out of their last 20, dating back to their weekend series against the Dodgers. In fact, since that weekend series against the Dodgers, the Yankees have only won one series, and that was 3 out of 4 against the Kansas City Royals, where they won the first 3 games of that 4-game series. They lost 2 of 3 against the Dodgers. They won the Royals series 3-1. They lost 2-3 to the Red Sox. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Orioles, 2 out of 3 to the Braves, and then lost 2 games to the Mets, and then lost the first game of this series against the Blue Jays. They're currently winning right now 7-4 in Toronto, but 12 out of the last 20 for the Yankees have been losses. But the Mets, on the entire other side of the spectrum, call it what you want. Call it divine intervention. Call it, the Mets finally playing to the back of their baseball card, or call it grimace. I don't know. But since Thursday, May 30th, right, the end of their May series, when they started against Arizona, they have won every single series in the month of June. They won. They split the series against Arizona, I should say, 2-2. They swept Washington. They split with Philly in London. They won 2 out of 3 in Miami. They swept San Diego. They won 2 out of 3 from Texas, 2 out of 3 from Chicago, and beat the New York Yankees. In fact, since May 30th, the Mets have only lost a total of 6 games. They have lost 6 of their last, that's 7, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 20. They've lost 6 out of 23 games so far since May 30th. So you're looking at the Mets, who are 17-6 in their last 23, and the Yankees, who are 6 and have lost 12 out of 20 games. What's the reality here? Is this slide we're seeing from the Yankees the reality? Is this surge that we're seeing from the Mets the reality? Or is what we saw in the beginning of the season, that middling 50-50 play from the Mets and that really surging play from the Yankees, the reality? Alphonse, is being the resident winner right now of the team, I'll let you start. What's the reality here for the New York teams?
So I'm going to be very honest, touching on my Mets first. As Pete Alonso just hit a home run to go up 3-2 against Houston, but as we speak. But I was not a believer in this team, and the three of us who follow baseball very closely can all admit the Mets virtually had a non-existent or underwhelming free agency period prior to spring training this year. The names that they brought in, now mind you, Steve Cohen is supposed to be the richest owner in baseball, but David Stearns, the GM, is playing. He's being very cheap. Brought in names like Adrian Hauser and aging JD Martinez, who turns out to be the best signing they've had. But really not really doing much. They bring in Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, all guys who nobody expected much out of to go with the rest of the squad. And I personally had the Mets at 69 wins total for this year, thinking that they were going to be a dumpster fire. They started off like that, but I think if they can, by the time the All-Star break comes around, we'll have an idea of the true identity of this year's Mets. Right now they're at 500. They're 1 game back of the wild card in the current standings. They're chasing the Cardinals for that last spot. So I firmly believe that if they can be 500 or better by the All-Star game, this team is going to stick around to make a push for October. As far as the Yankees go, it's very telling when a team can be in this bad of a slump and still, as of right now, be tied for first in their division. We've seen this in, what was it? I believe 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago, where the Yankees had that horrible collapse. That wasn't really a collapse. I think that you guys lost like what? You had a horrible 20-game stretch, and you were still 10 games ahead of whoever was second in the AL East. So there's plenty of baseball season left for you guys to go into a slump like that and remain in first place or even remain in contention. And a Yankee fan even said it at the game the other day to me before you arrived. He was like, "Yeah, we're in a slump, but we're still first," which that's amazing given the bad run that you guys are having. So I think the Yankees are going to be just fine. I think you guys are going to wind up in the playoffs one way or another. I can't see the Yankees falling to a wild card, but even if Baltimore edges you out at the end of the year, you guys are still playing baseball in October regardless. The Mets, like I said, if they can be above 500 by the All-Star break, I'll be a buyer.
Okay. I think it's something that we all 3 of us have spoken on, right? Me and Pete in particular, where we talked about the Mets could potentially be a wild card team, per injuries from other squads. Now with Philly having a significant injury, Bryce Harper going down to the IL. The Mets have a chance. Schwarber too. The Mets have a chance to catch up. They have a lot of ground to cover. but they have a chance to catch up. And these two teams now are night and day, right? At one point in time, the Yankees seemed unbeatable. If you talk to a Yankee fan 2 months ago, month and a half ago, we're going to the World Series. I know that's something we say every year, but it really looked like that this year. This team has a lot of potential. And it looked like the Mets were being the Mets. Now, the Mets are now sitting at 500. They've lost, 6 games, you said, Pete? That's all. That's it. They've won most of their series through the final months. We're going in. This is the final week of June. So they're actually finishing up with a very strong June. And the Yankees, on the other hand, are having a horrible June. And we've talked about this as well. They've ran into a schedule where I don't know why they can't figure out Baltimore for whatever reason. The Dodgers was a high-pressure situation. I get it. Cool. We went in there against Kansas City. Kansas City, we won that series. But then after that, we just started going downhill after that. And now currently we've lost the last, give or take, 20 you said? It's 12 out of 20?
Yeah, we've lost. We've lost 12 of our last 20 games.
Right. And we haven't been winning series. For the most part, what's been keeping us afloat and keeping the Yankees in first place have been winning series. We'll drop a game, but we will eventually win the series. Now we're starting to lose these series to teams that we shouldn't be losing to. At least tied with Baltimore. So now, like you said, Alphonse, the Yankees are still sitting in first place, tied for first place now, with all these losses that they've racked up. Will we be playing October baseball? Absolutely. I humbly agree with that. I think the Mets can get in. I think the Mets can be a wild card by the time October comes around. I really think the Mets can make a push for a wild card if they keep playing the way they're playing.
And see, here's the thing. I'm looking at, I look at the Yankees schedule coming up. We have 3 games remaining against Toronto. Obviously, we dropped the first game of the series. Then we play 3 games against Cincinnati, 3 against Boston, 3 against Tampa Bay, and then 3 against Baltimore before we go into the All-Star break. So somewhat of an easy schedule. I would say Baltimore probably the toughest team on that schedule for the remaining time between now and the All-Star break. Versus I look at the Mets remaining schedule. I mean, they've got these 3 games against Houston. They're currently winning the first game of that series, but they got 3 games against Houston, 4 against Washington, 4 against Pittsburgh, another 3 against Washington, and 3 against Colorado. I don't see why the Mets, schedule-wise, can't continue this winning streak. I mean, the toughest game they have left on their schedule is probably the first game on July 5th against Pittsburgh, where they're going to be going up against Paul Skeens. So probably the toughest game they have left up until the All-Star break. So I don't see why the Mets can't continue. What we've seen from the Mets, and we saw this especially, we've seen this. Look at these numbers right here in the month of June. The Mets, outside of their losses, they scored 8, 6, and 9 in their wins against Washington. They scored 10 in one of their wins against Miami. The San Diego wins were a little lower, except for that last win where they scored 11 runs. They scored 14 and then 7 against Texas. They got 11 runs. Okay, not all of them, but most of them off of Imanaga in that first game. And then against the Yankees, they won 9-7 and 12-2. They've scored runs versus the New York Yankees. What has really worried me about the Yankees is the lack of run scoring and the lack of power. I mean, listen, in those 3 games against Los Angeles, we went 1, 3, and 6. Kansas City was the last time you really saw a lot of power because the Yankees scored 10 runs and then 11 runs in 2 of their 3 wins. But for the rest of it, you saw an 8-1 win against Boston, but then they lost 8-4, 9-3. They lose 17-5 against Baltimore. They lose 8-1 to Atlanta, 3-1 to Atlanta, 12-2 to the Mets, 9-2 last night against Toronto. There's been a major power outage in New York. outside of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, the Yankee offense has been non-existent. Even Anthony Volpe is slowed down from that hot rookie second-year start that we saw at the beginning of the year. And this has been the big thing. There are holes in the Yankee offense. We didn't see it a lot because everybody else was hitting except for Rizzo, Glaber, and Judge in the beginning of the year. Soto was carrying the team. Volpe was hitting well. DJ came back and was hitting pretty okay. You had some of the role players stepping up and hitting. Well, Verdugo had a pretty good start to the season, but now Verdugo was ice cold. I think he's 1 for his last 23, not counting last night's game. Glaber's so cold he got benched. Soto is getting walked. Judge is getting walked. Rizzo's hurt. Volpe is kind of slowed down. So you're not seeing the same power out of the Yankees. And this also happens at a time when our pitching staff has been running into some blips. Luis Gil is, he's pitched more this season already than he pitched all of last year. And that's the one worry when you bring in a rookie pitcher, when you're bringing in a young guy that you got to stretch out. That's why he's been on that innings limit, because they're trying to limit the number of innings that he's pitched because he's already above what he pitched last year. So the question is his arm giving out? Is his shoulder giving out? We're obviously seeing control issues out of Gil, and that was not something we saw earlier in the season. Cole had a decent first start back, second start back, not so much. Cole is basically in spring training mode, and Rodon and Cortez and Stroman have been a little up and down this month. So you have a power outage combined with pitching issues for the Yankees right now. I think what we saw in the beginning of the season is more of what the Yankees really are, in the sense of I think their pitching is really, really good. I mean, Luis Gil essentially did his job. He got us to when we got Cole back. And I don't think anyone expected him to be as good as he was. And if you did, you literally should be the president of Mensa at this point right now, or the new Nostradamus, if you thought or knew that Gil was going to be what he was. But he's been a revelation. He did more than we expected him to in any definition of the concept by getting us to where he did when Cole came back. Gil can rest now. We don't need the 6-man rotation. It'd be nice. But if we can give time for Gil to rest, maybe be a long arm out of the bullpen, lower his workload, I think that'd be good. The Mets are finally starting to hit, which is what's really good. Lindor has been on fire since being moved to the leadoff spot. The pressure of being an RBI machine has been taken off of his shoulders. And a lot of this, in Alphonse, people aren't really talking about this. They talk a lot about Grimace. But in my opinion, a lot of this Mets resurgence happened to coincide with the return of Francisco Alvarez to the lineup and coming back like a house of fire and solidifying the middle of that lineup, but around Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and all of them, and giving them another piece. I think the Mets are a good team. I think they're better than a 500 team. I think they have a chance to be above 500 and better come the All-Star break. I think what we saw out of the Yankees in the beginning of the season is the reality. I think what we're seeing out of the Mets right now is much closer to the reality of what the Mets should be. And as you said, Alphonse, I think it's going to be, the saving grace for a lot of Met fans who talk about maybe this could be the way you keep a Pete Alonso by continuing to win and saying, hey, we have a shot at something this year. We don't get rid of the guy. We're not out of it. I think if the Mets had been completely out of it, if the Mets had gone on a slide similar to what the Yankees are going on right now, I think now we would have seriously been talking about Alonso may be gone at the trade deadline, because that may be the only way to kind of rebuild this team.
Yeah, agreed. And one last point, Pete Alonso's also come alive during this stretch too. For a guy playing for a contract and and a guy that defends, he's a fan favorite that they want to see stick around. It's going to work out for both parties if they can remain competitive down the stretch.
Yeah, let's move on to two other first place teams, and let's talk about some first place injuries. The Los Angeles Dodgers in first place in the National League West by 8.5 games over the San Diego Padres, and the Philadelphia Phillies, who are also ahead by 8.5 games over the Atlanta Braves in the National League East. Both teams have suffered some recent injury troubles. Philly putting Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber on the 10-day IL. We all know the 10-day usually leads to a 15-day stay or a little bit more. They might be out till the All-Star break, possibly. And the Los Angeles Dodgers lost Yamamoto earlier this month to the 15-day IL with a right rotator cuff strain. And obviously Mookie Betts sidelined 6 to 8 weeks with a wrist issue after getting hit in the hand on June 17th. On top of that, Walker Buehler being placed on the 15-day IL with hip discomfort and not getting good news from Clayton Kershaw and Max Muncy, who are both on the 60-day IL. Kershaw will actually be shut down for a week after feeling soreness in his surgically repaired left shoulder. And Max Muncy, at least still a week away from swinging a bat with no timeline for a return. Which one of these first-place teams are these injuries more problematic for? The Phillies with Harper and Schwarber, we still don't know the extent of those injuries, or the Dodgers with Yamamoto, Betts, and then and Buehler and the rest of the people on the IL. Grizz, what do you think?
I'm gonna go with Philly. I think Philly is gonna hurt more from this. I think with the Dodgers, losing Mookie is a hit, and most of those guys that they've had on the IL have been there already. Kershaw's been there, Muncy has been there, and they've been winning without these guys. So I think this is okay for the Dodgers for right now. Philly, I don't think so. Losing Bryce Harper is a big hit. Clearly, you still got big bats. You still got Trey Turner over there still doing his thing. But losing Schwarber and Bryce Harper back-to-back, not good. Not good at all. I think there's more pressure on the Dodgers. Not even on the Dodgers. I'll flip it like this. There's more pressure on now Shohei Ohtani to step up and be the guy that they paid him to be. Because this is the time where that $700 million contract comes into play. That, hey, we went out and got you because for this particular reason. Mookie is down. Time for you to step up. Let's see what you got. Can you be the superstar that we know you can be?
Alphonse, what say you? I mean, Harper down with a left hamstring strain, and then Schwarber with a left groin strain. And we know that these hamstrings and groin strains usually turn out to be larger time injuries. Harper not giving a timetable for his return. What's the worst injury bug here? The first place Phillies or the first place Dodgers?
I'm going to have the controversial take, and I'm going to say neither because I don't think either team is in trouble. I'll tell you why. The Dodgers are so far ahead of the NL West. Their only real threat, and I don't even think anybody's going to catch the division, but I think the only other good team in that division outside of the Dodgers is the Padres. The Giants, with their litany of injuries, have fallen tremendously. And the Rockies are the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks, who were the World Series runner-ups last year, are nowhere near in the same form this year that they were last year with a better team on paper. Then you look at the Phillies. The Braves have been a middle-of-the-pack team since Ronald Acuna went out. Their pitching is their biggest downfall. Charlie Morton struggles even though he wins. And Max Fried is back, but is not the Max Fried of old. So I don't think they'll catch Philly. The Mets, while the Mets are on a surge, the Mets were in so deep of a hole to begin the season. I don't think they realistically catch Philly. They're still double-digit games behind in the standings. The Nationals are keeping neck and neck with the Mets, but I don't think they have what it takes to stay consistent down the stretch. And the Marlins are cellar dwellers. So I think both teams will win their divisions, if I may say so. As far as what the worst injury is, I can tell you, I think the Phillies should be more scared than the Dodgers are. When Mookie comes back, he'll probably get DH'd. That would be the smartest thing to do. Actually, no, they can't DH him because Shohei can't throw, so he can't field. But a fractured hand is I think is easier to combat than, especially because he had surgery on it, than a hamstring injury, which Bryce Harper was even quoted as saying this morning. And I quote, "I have never felt anything like this in my career." So now you got a guy who's injured, doesn't even know how to manage the injury. The feeling is unfamiliar to him. And then the Phillies, why I think that they're going to face a little bit of adversity. Their lineup, unlike the Dodgers 1 through 8, maybe they're scary, even without Mookie right now. Of course, they've got Will Smith, they've got Shohei, they've got Teoscar Hernandez, all these Freddie Freeman, all these guys that can consistently hit well. You look at the Phillies, they lost their leadoff hitter in Schwarber, who's a power hitter, which usually your power hitter is never a leadoff guy. And then you have Harper at number 3. And then you look at the bottom half of their lineup that doesn't scare anybody. Edmundo Sosa, Josh Rojas, Cody Clemens, like Bryson Stott, all these guys who don't strike fear into anyone. And
how are you not scared by Whit Merrifield and Nick Castellanos?
Castellanos, yes. Merrifield is out of his prime. If you look at the Phillies and the way that they've won games this season, it's all based on scoring runs. They are a high-octane offense. Their pitching leaves a lot to be desired. And outside of Zach Wheeler and Chris Sanchez and Ranger Suarez, they either go to a lot of spot starters or Taijuan Walker gets bombed every game. So I think that they have more cause for concern. But like I said, both teams are going to win their divisions, no questions about it.
I mean, you know, the Phillies have 4 quality starters. They have Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, and Sanchez has been a revelation. Obviously, Taijuan Walker is what he is. But they pitched very well as well versus the Dodgers. You know, you have Glasnow is now your number 1 guy. You know, because Shohei can't throw, so he's not pitching this year. Buehler's out again. Kershaw's still not coming back. And Yamamoto's out.
The Dodgers actually, this kid Gavin Stone has actually been pretty good this season. So you can't discount him. He actually had a heck of a showing against you guys when the Dodgers took a trip to the Bronx. Guys, 9-2 with a sub-3 ERA.
Yeah.
Right, but again, is James Paxton going to be this great James Paxton for the whole season? How long is Yamamoto going to be out? How long Walker Buehler going to be out? So it's really now Tyler Glasnow, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, and James Paxton. So you've got one star, one guy who is a young guy who could be a star, and James Paxton. And we already had issues with their lineup outside of Mookie and Freeman and Will Smith, right? And Shohei, because Jason Hayward is not striking fear into anybody's heart. The Hernandez duo isn't really striking fear into anybody's heart unless they're playing in New York. Gavin Lux isn't really striking fear into your heart. James Outman, so what do you have now? Now you got Rojas playing third. You've now got Gavin Lux having to come out and probably pay, and Enrique Hernandez is going to have to become an everyday guy. Teoscar's out there now. You've got Rojas out there. Right now, your entire offense is Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani. So to me, there's a lot more to be concerned with from the Dodgers standpoint. I do agree with you, though, Alphonse. The Dodgers, in my opinion, have less to be scared of in terms of the teams that are chasing them. I think I'm surprised the Braves have stayed in it for as long as they have. Losing Strider, losing Acuna, not really hitting the way that they should be hitting. But the Mets and the Braves, the Mets with their surge, the Braves staying in it for as long as they have, it scares me more in the NL East than the rest of the NL West, though the Diamondbacks did make a great second half run last year. So the question is going to be, can they reinvent that with another second half run is going to be the question. But, the Dodgers have less to be scared about than the Phillies, but I'm more worried about the Dodgers' injuries there. The Lex 2738 on Twitch. The Mets are fool's gold. They'll go back to their losing ways eventually. Never fails.
Oof.
I disagree.
Well, Alphonse, I got to ask you here. I know we're kind of jumping the gun here real quick. If the Mets continue on this run, are they buyers at the deadline?
Absolutely, you got to be a buyer because right now the Mets, they're 500, but I think with another piece or two, they'll be solid. And then the Mets definitely have some pieces that they can let go. If you look at the Mets bench right now, I'm pretty sure that we could dump. I mean, even though he's been the both of them have been hitting above 300, but we could dump Luis Torrens and Jose Iglesias and find somewhere for them to go and get something back. And our farm system is pretty healthy. I mean, I wouldn't lose any sleep. We lost Jet Williams or Luis Angel Acuna or any of them. So Brett Beatty's in Syracuse floundering away. He's proven he can't play defense. We could ship him somewhere too. So
I thought Angel Acuna was supposed to be this uber prospect.
Yeah.
Well, like I always say about prospects will always be what they are until proven otherwise. Prospects.
All right. Well, listen. I mean, it's your Yankees right now up 7-5. Couldn't do it for us, but IKF with a home run, Grizz.
Wow.
Give him a break. He was an all-star the year that he played for you guys. Don't do that.
And Vlad Jr. With a solo home run. So the Blue Jays cutting the lead to 7-5 for the Yankees. And the Mets actually up after a McNeil home run. The Mets are up 6-2 on the Astros, who have been doing very, very well. And talk about, something that's been doing very, very well for the Mets really quickly. Their pitching has been very, very good. David Peterson pitched an incredible game against the Yankees. Had he not walked 5, probably would have stayed in the game. And, the guy that you called just this past Wednesday, the worst starter the Mets have, Jose Quintana, struck out 7 and only gave up 2 runs on 6 hits in 4 innings of work.
Yeah, but come on. It's not a quality start unless you can go 5+. What exactly did I say on Wednesday when we sat there and they showed him on the big screen? I said that is a guy who cannot go 5 innings, and in every start but 3 this year, he's the ones that he's won. He hasn't gone 5 innings. So,
well, he went 4 tonight, 7 strikeouts, 6 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks through 93 pitches in 4 innings, and then Ottavino and Nunez picking up the rest of the slack. Mets up 6-2 on the Astros, who've also been on a pretty good winning streak themselves. The Astros actually on a 7-game win streak. The Mets looking to end that here. Speaking of streaks, gentlemen, we've not had that good of a streak when it comes to our trivia section. But so I decided to make it a little bit easier this episode. I think maybe we might be able to get this one here. All right, gentlemen, are we ready?
Yep.
All right. Let's do it.
Here we go. Who's the only player in Major League Baseball history to achieve a 30-30 season in both the AL and the NL?
30-30 season.
30 home runs, 30 stolen bases.
30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. Okay. I'm gonna go on a limb. Ricky Henderson.
Alfonso Soriano.
Both of you absolutely incorrect.
Okay.
Soriano did do it with Washington. And he was a left fielder for Washington in 2006. He was actually part of the 40-40 club, but did not do it in the AL. The only person to do it in both the American League and the National League, Carlos Beltran.
Oh, I hate that guy.
was about to say, that's somebody you should really hate with deep disdain as a Mets fan.
Carlos Beltran, a member of the 30-30 Club in both the American League and the National League. He did it actually as a combined 30-30 in 2004, playing for Kansas City and then for Houston. Hit 15 home runs and 14 stolen bases for Kansas City, and then 23 home runs and 28 stolen bases for Houston, for a total of 38 home runs and 42 stolen bases across both the American League and the National League. Only man to legally have done it in both leagues. All right, gentlemen. So, I think this has been an issue in most professional sports. We've seen it obviously in football with the Pro Bowl. We've seen it in the NBA with the All-Star Weekend. And I think we're seeing the same thing in Major League Baseball. And I hate to use the wording that I'm going to use here for the way that I worded this topic, but how do we make All-Star Weekend great again? We've seen, issues with the home run derby. It kind of like fluctuates year after year. We haven't seen the same amount of love for the All-Star game itself year after year. They've done everything from changing the rules to making it a playoff spot to home field advantage in the playoffs for the team that wins, for the league that wins, a variety of things. What's something, Grizz, that you would bring to All-Star Weekend that you think would make All-Star Weekend a lot more interesting for Major League Baseball?
Well, for one, we got to get people interested in baseball altogether, which I hate. But for All-Star Weekend, I mean, you got to make it feel important, right? When the NBA does All-Star Weekend, no matter how much people complain about it, people are tuned in. People watch. They watch skill challenge. They watch dunk contest. They watch the game itself, even though the game itself is not as serious. Baseball's a little harder. It's kind of hard to do the things that other sports do when it comes down to the big game. As far as the whole weekend goes, I do know they do a celebrity softball game. So that does happen. That's pretty cool to watch.
Got the Derby.
You got the Derby. And then you have the game itself. The what game?
The Futures game.
The Futures game. Yeah, they have that as well. And they have the game itself. I'd probably try to add like a sort of like how the NBA does. I'd probably try to add like a skills challenge into it, where you have either the shortstops that are, top candidates for a gold glove that year. You'd go for that. So like you would put like an Anthony Volpe there, who's probably going to be up for a gold glove this season. And you would have them just various things, whether it's, making a certain play or doing certain things. Now, it may seem like drills to everyone else because in actuality, it is drills. In actuality. But it gives a chance to show off how hard some of these positions that these players play. Because let's be honest, the whole debate for like a good month or so, if anybody follows TikTok like I do, and the whole debate for like a good month or so is, could a basketball player play baseball, or can a football player play this sport? And I'm here to tell you that baseball is probably one of the hardest sports to play because you got to have hand-eye coordination, timing. You got to have speed in certain places. And above all else, even though there's a good percentage of baseball players that are not in shape, you have to be in shape. So let's end that debate. I would put that in there. There's really not much you can really do with baseball itself because you do the home run derby. The home run derby is exciting. But the only thing about the home run derby is that the guys you want to see are not competing every year. So you're not seeing an Aaron Judge every year. Aaron Judge actually came out and said he won't compete until it comes to New York. So there somehow, some way they'll make.
He was in a derby once, wasn't he?
He was.
He was, but he came out and said recently he won't compete in another one until the All-Star game comes to New York.
And I think we've seen with the Derby the issues with injury and fatigue in the second half of the season, especially with these power guys.
Right. So we've seen Vlad win it a couple of years back, but you're not seeing these guys all the time. So now you're not seeing the power hitters. You're not seeing the people that most people just know off the top of their head. That's just general knowledge. So that's where the home run derby kind of lacks. And then not only that, a lot of these guys get tired halfway through when you're watching the derby. You know, they do 2 rounds, or was it 2 or 3 rounds of just hitting the baseball, and they're not used to that. So I would probably try to change up the way it's structured. Maybe the first round is just a 1-round knockout. It's just, hey, the lower seed player is going up against the top seeded player, and whoever hits the most home runs is going to move on to the next round. There is no 2 rounds, 3 rounds. When we get to the final, then yes, let's do 2 rounds of this. You know, or you could do like how they do a 3-point challenge. You have every baseball, and then you have one color differentiated baseball that's worth a certain amount of points. So like maybe that's worth 3 points. You know, if you knock that into the stands. Just something to make it a little more exciting. But like I said, there's not really much you can do with baseball itself because it's such a sport where there's really not much to do unless you're actually playing the game. But the skill challenge, I think I would add that in there. And not only that, then I think that shows off a lot of guys who are candidates for Gold Gloves. It shows off their skills as well. So I would add that into it.
Alphonse, what do you think? How do you make All-Star Weekend great again?
Well, looking at the current format of All-Star Weekend, I like the futures game because just similar to the NBA, how they have the well, I know I don't keep up with it much anymore, but like how they had the rookie sophomore challenge back in the day, I think the futures game is a great idea. The celebrity softball game is always a riot. I just wish they would televise it live instead of on tape delay. Yeah. Home run derby, I have no issue with, although to Grizz's point, I would say that we've seen notable sluggers in the contest in recent years. Of course, the Vlad Juniors, the Pete Alonsos, even in Pujols last season, he entered and actually made it to the second round, much to the shock of everybody. The Kyle Schwarbers. So I don't have an issue with who's going to participate. Although, you know, Aaron Judge as a home run king himself should be in there. Yeah. But as far as but I agree with Grizz, like it's not much that you can do with the sport of baseball. As far as a skills competition, like we've seen the NFL do their skills competition, which is basically a punt competition, a 40-yard dash, and all this other. It's like watching the combine, which I don't think the mass audience would be interested in seeing. The diehard baseball fans like us, yes, where we could do a stolen base challenge between the top 3 stolen base leaders in baseball. But I don't think that would amount to TV ratings, which is of course what every sport wants. However, one thing I've noticed about the NBA All-Star game, it's like a day off for those guys. It's like they're playing ball at the local rec center. They don't care. They're jacking up shots, not playing defense. They don't care whether they win or lose. We've seen baseball do everything from, like Pete said, home field advantage for the winning league's representative in the World Series, which I always thought was a bad idea. Thank you, Bud Selig, for that travesty after the Milwaukee game where you ran out of pitchers in 2002. But I think that 2 things should happen. Number 1, abolish the rule that every team must have a representative, because in recent years, that's led to players being selected to the All-Star game and not appearing in the game itself. Notable example, when Kodai Senga made the All-Star game last year, he didn't get to pitch, and he was the Mets' lone representative. If there's no room to play guys in 9 innings of an exhibition game, we shouldn't even waste their time. That's number one. Number two, certain guys on horrible teams like the Chicago White Soxes and the Miami Marlins, they shouldn't have a representative either. You're on a losing team going nowhere, 30 games below 500. How could anybody be good on that team, or be a must see player that somebody would want, that a casual fan, because that's who All-Star games are marketed toward, would want to see. So that's number one. And I think the other option, if you want the best game possible, nothing is a motivator, even to millionaires. Nothing is more of a motivator than more money. Cut the winning team an extra check. I know the All-Star MVP every year gets a car, but give the whole team an incentive to win. I don't know, maybe give like what the NBA did with the play-in tournament, where everyone on the roster got $500,000. Do something like that. It doesn't have to be $500,000, $250,000 extra for all these guys. I'm pretty sure, somebody, you tell them you'll give them extra money, they'll go ahead and play their best. But as far as things to do for fan engagement, I can't think of anything that would want to make somebody who doesn't already sit down and watch MLB All-Star Weekend. I don't think there's anything that you can do to get them to watch.
So I've been thinking on this question ever since, Grizz, we kind of put this together in the production meeting and you brought this up. First thing I'll say is I'm going to disagree with you, Alphonse, on the fact that not every team should have a representative. Because what you're not going to tell me is that Garrett Crochet, who is the Chicago White Sox, doesn't deserve to be in the All-Star game. He's an All-Star level pitcher right now. In fact, the number one pitcher that people are looking to try to trade for at the trade deadline. You're not going to tell me that Tariq Skubal of the Detroit Tigers, who are a terrible team right now, doesn't deserve to be at the All-Star game, right? You can't tell me, right now the Chicago Cubs are in last place in the NL Central. You're not going to tell me that Imanaga doesn't deserve an All-Star spot, right? There are players
who on the Marlins are you sending to the All-Star game? Who on the Giants are you sending to the All-Star game?
Well, let's see. I would send the best player on the team. And that's the thing. There are players on teams that can have great seasons, even though their team isn't having a great season, right? So you can have an all-star level player on a team, even though necessarily that team is not having a great year, whether it be a relief pitcher, it might be a starter. You may have the best reliever in baseball. I believe Oakland has one of the best relievers in baseball right now. And Oakland is one of the most terrible teams in Major League Baseball. Does that mean that reliever is not an all-star caliber player? No, he is. He's just on a terrible team. And had that player been on a different team, he probably would have been even better because that team has an even better situation. So I'm going to disagree with you there, but I actually thought of a couple of ways that I think would make All-Star Weekend exciting, and I wonder what you guys think here. So I'm gonna kind of like put these in order, I think, from what I think would probably be the least exciting, still exciting, to the most exciting. One of the things that happened this year during All-Star Weekend was the NBA All-Star Weekend, was the big heralded three-point contest between Sabrina Ionescu and Steph Curry. I would love to see Major League Baseball hitters try to hit off of some of the best professional softball pitchers. I think they'd have a very hard time. It'd be hilarious to watch, and I think it'd be great television. I think that's one thing that could be done. Number two, I'd like to see some legends come back and do some home run derby kind of thing. Make it like almost an old timers day home run derby with recently retired legends. Imagine Vlad Guerrero Sr. right now in a home run derby. Imagine Miguel Cabrera, a year not playing the rigors of a season. Okay, his first retired season, coming back and playing in a home run derby. Again, we're not going to get the prodigious home. Imagine Barry Bonds in a home run derby right now. A retired old timers home run derby right now. Like
to your point, they did do a all-star legends game in the 80s and 90s, and they cut that out.
Right. And I think that would be something that'd be really, really dope. And now here are two things that I think these are my top two ideas. Number one, I think you find a way to do almost like a mini 1 day or 2 day World Baseball Classic tournament over All-Star Weekend, and maybe make it a little bit of a longer All-Star break and do maybe a 2 to 3 day World Baseball Classic kind of tournament, a more of a mini truncated one. And you do a World Baseball Classic kind of all-star event, which I think would be really, really interesting because the World Baseball Classic gets a crap ton of viewers when it actually does happen. So imagine now taking that same level of excitement and projecting it into the regular season instead of something that's once every couple of years, like a World Cup and things like that. Because again, we talk about it in soccer. A lot of people don't watch soccer on a regular everyday basis, but when the World Cup comes around, everybody watches soccer. I think that'd be a good idea. Now, here's my number one idea, and you can call me crazy. I think this would sell tickets. I think this would get you ad buys. I think it helps Major League Baseball. I think it gives you casual viewers. And I think, most importantly, it puts fun into baseball. I would do MLB All-Stars versus the Savannah Bananas in a Savannah Bananas rules game. I would go all out. Okay, I would bring the Savannah Bananas in. I'd bring in all the celebrities that they put as a part of it. I'd bring all the goofiness of the Savannah Bananas baseball games. Listen, one of the biggest things on social media, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter, is these Savannah Banana clips of these games, of the players, of all the fun stuff that they do. It's almost like watching the Harlem Globetrotters for our age right now. I don't want to say the 21st century because technically we're not in the 21st century, I don't think, anymore. I'm not sure. I think we're in the 21st century. But it's like watching the Harlem Globetrotters of our generation in the social media era. There is nothing more fun about baseball than the Savannah Bananas. And I guarantee you, there are young people, there are millennials, there are people in their 30s who are watching Savannah Banana clips on social media who are not watching baseball. So imagine taking the stuffiness, the old timiness out of baseball for a weekend and making it Savannah Bananas and bringing the Savannah Bananas in and kind of having this injection of fun, an injection of silliness and wackiness into the baseball game. And as you said, Alphonse, it would be like a day off for these guys. They would have so much fun. It'd be like they were back in Little League. It's after your game. You're just messing around with your friends on an empty baseball field. You're just having fun, trick shots, trick hits. Oh, I can hit the ball by swinging backwards. I don't have to follow the rules of the league and do all these different things. I think it'd be really, really, really fun. And I actually think it would get a lot of viewership as a fun way to spice up All-Star Weekend.
Imagine being called out because you hit a foul ball in the stands and a fan caught it.
But look at that, though. But think about the level of fan engagement that would. Steve Bartman would be a hero.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that. I'll one up you on that one. So the whole debate on social media about different players. Oh, baseball's an easy sport. Have those players come in. You've got guys like Donovan Mitchell, who's played baseball, and his dad works for the Mets organization.
Russell Wilson was actually in spring training with the Yankees and the Rangers.
Russell Wilson. You got Zach LaVine. And these are just basketball players. You could even get some of the football guys to come in because now you could do it kind of like this whole new thing now is multiverse crossover. That's the whole new selling point in everything, right? So let's do that. You think that you can hit a slider? You think that baseball is an easy sport? Come step into my world and have an at bat. We'll give you 3 outs. have an at bat, and more people will put eyes on it. Imagine like this, right? Imagine if Steph Curry, let's just say they do. Forgive me, I don't know where the All-Star game is this year. Let's just say they do
the MLB All-Star game.
Yeah, this year,
Texas Rangers Stadium.
Okay. So, okay, we'll do it like that. Okay, so let's just say Luka Doncic comes, and he's like, "Look, I want to take 3 at bat. I want to take 1 at bat. I get 3 outs. That's it." People, if somebody clips that, puts that on every social media outlet, it's going to get so much traction and so much fan engagement that people are going to want to see more of that. So now, if you go to like a San Francisco and you got Steph Curry and the Warriors come there, kids are going to see this and go, "Oh, Steph Curry thinks baseball is cool. I want to try it. I want to try out baseball now because Steph Curry tried out baseball or he likes baseball." So it's like you could do something like that. You could even do MLB guys versus NBA guys if you really want to do it like that. Or have a mixture, have NBA and NFL guys just mix up. And you can even put a mixture of MLB guys on the squad. So like say like on a Friday, instead of you doing a celebrity game, you can do a pretty much a pickup game, basically.
Yeah.
Where you could do
and have Smith sing the national anthem.
My only question to that is, will the MLB players want to play in a game like that and risk getting hurt?
Well, I don't think I see. The thing is that I think it's going to be more so like you just said, like you said with the NBA game. It's going to be more so we're not taking this serious. We're just trying to prove a point to you guys, but we're going to still have fun in the process.
Yeah, but I feel like baseball is a much easier sport to get hurt in than basketball is. God forbid you have Dak Prescott playing in this game and he throws a pitch and he bombs Julio Rodriguez, for example, in the face. That'll be a disaster.
So I think certain positions they would put MLB guys in. So like pitcher.
Oh, so the teams are mixed.
Yeah, the teams are mixed.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll just mix the teams because clearly if you're not going to have a guy from the NFL, you're not going to have a 300-pound linebacker be your pitcher. He's not going to know what to do with it. But you mix and match. So maybe some of those guys might be in the outfield. Then you might have some NBA guys in the infield, and it'll be a mixture of just MLB, NFL, NBA guys.
Yeah,
so
imagine seeing like an NFL running back coming in as a pinch runner, or NFL wide receiver in the outfield, and all of a sudden you think you've got a triple to the deepest part of the outfield, and the fastest guy in the NFL catches it.
Right, like for example, let's just say you got like a Justin Jefferson, or you got like a Tyreek Hill going after a fly ball. Like it's a robbery every time because those guys are so fast. So I think that would be exciting. And then that also plays into that social media debate of what sport is harder, because I mean,
I will tell you this. I would love to see Tyreek Hill on first base and try to take a stolen base off a guy like Paul Skeens or somebody.
See what I'm saying? So this is the thing that you're doing. Like, imagine like you have a Zach Wheeler on the mound, Tyreek Hill at first base, trying to steal second. He goes to steal second and gets out. Now it's like the whole myth of Tyreek Hill being this fast person. You're not as fast as an MLB player. Or he steals second and then tries to go for third. Like it could be comedic. It could be fun-loving. It'll sell. You'll get more eyes on it because you'll get the best of both worlds. You'll bring in the casuals and you'll also bring in the diehard fans who are fans of other sports. And it'll sell. I think that can work if you replace that with the celebrity game.
Yeah, and I think the only issue with that is going to be, the difference in training camps, obviously.
Yeah.
MLB, going on, especially like when you talk about like the All-Star break, it's kind of like draft season, almost, getting ready for training, for the NBA, and then obviously the NFL kind of gearing up. I think that might be the only issue there. But I think that'd be a great idea. And I think even compounding off of that, going back to that kind of like the legends versus the current guys, I would love to see a pared down, more exhibition style thing. Like, I'd love to see one at bat, Randy Johnson versus Aaron Judge. Like, imagine what that could look like the fun of that. Like somebody like Randy Johnson, Aaron Judge is having some fun there. I'd love to see. Imagine all of a sudden Paul Skeens is on the mound and Griffey walks up. Right?
That'd be lopsided, though. You would think the old heads would get destroyed because I guarantee Randy Johnson hasn't thrown a pitch in like a decade.
You're not throwing 90. You're not doing this. You're not, it's more exhibition style. I'd even go, softball with it. I'd go, you put the veterans, the retired guys. And again, I'm not talking about guys who have been out of the league, for super duper long. I mean, obviously Griffey maybe get a one at bat, but I'm saying you take a guy like, you take guys who are recently retired, and put them out there, have some fun, stuff like that. I think it'd be really, really cool. And it would add a level of, levity. It would add a level of also seriousness to All-Star Weekend because you got these returning legends. You're showing the respect to these legends that are there, that are everyday parts of the game, because that's one of the things that's the hardest thing to do. The generational gaps in baseball, right? You get kids who are watching baseball now who don't know who guys like Jeter are, Bonds are, McGuire, Sosa. They don't know about them. And so finding ways to keep them intertwined. The NBA does a great job with this during All-Star Weekend, where they make the legends just as much of a focus as the All-Stars, right? They make the legends the judges of the dunk contest, the judges of the skills contest, and they show them. They're always referencing their legends. I feel like baseball, there's not a lot of it unless you're going to the Hall of Fame or unless you're a historian or unless you're reading up on a stat. You're not really consistently getting reminded of the greats.
I think that would be really entertaining, though, because imagine this, right? You got a guy like David Ortiz who works with MLB Network and everything. They do their commentating and all that. You got David Ortiz who will go up there knowing that he's like the biggest jokester for one at bat. And then imagine somebody who's not a pitcher. Jeter is just sick of his stuff and says, you know what, I'm going to strike him out. Jeter just comes up and wants to be a pitcher just for that one at bat. You can't tell me that's not entertaining.
It's like, I think it'd be great. I think, doing some of these things. And again, this is where the Savannah Bananas come in. Right? Because you take a team like the Savannah Bananas and you put some of the old guys, some of the legends on the Savannah Bananas, and you play it under the kind of like their fun rules. There's something very fun to that. And it's something that baseball has not yet found. And that's that generational gap. Listen, you and I, all three of us, we could sit down, we could watch a 9-inning game, we could watch a pitcher's duel, we can watch somebody work a complete game shutout, a perfect game, and watch that really technical stuff. We could sit down and be completely intrigued by a 1-0 perfect game. A lot of the younger audience that baseball is trying to get, that younger audience that they're trying to not only get as the viewing audience, but as future baseball players, aren't doing that. They're not intrigued by that. Well, how do we do it? We got to make it fun. We got to make it accessible, right? We got to make it less stuffy. Listen, you know what really took basketball to another level? Street ball. And the advent of like making street ball as much of a part of the nomenclature of NBA as the NBA was. So now you get these kids who I don't got money or access to a rec league or an AAU team or this or that. Yeah, but I could cross you. I cross your shoes, son. I could dunk on you. I could do this. I'll make you look silly. And all of a sudden now, they're able to build basketball skills that were able to be something. And some of those street ball players were able to – listen, you think Rafer Alston ever becomes an NBA-level player without having done what he did in street ball? No, he doesn't. Skip to my Lou is who he is as an NBA player because of what street ball being adopted into the nomenclature of the NBA gave to him, and the NBA players accepting the culture of street ball. There was nothing that was more telling than that one game where you have Durant and Kobe and all of them going down to Rucker Park and playing in Rucker Park. There was that moment of this is real, this is valid, this is a part of the culture, and we accept it. You're not seeing Major League Baseball sending its guys to go play at a gas station where someone drew a strike zone on the wall with a piece of chalk. But that's where a lot of us are learning how to play. A lot of us are drawing a strike zone on a handball court and saying third base is the car, second base is the trash can, first base is this pile of leaves we put together. Major League Baseball isn't making that valid the same way the NBA made street ball valid, the same way the NFL made flag football valid.
Yeah, but to your point though, as far as like a street ball type culture, baseball for kids or anybody who just wants to play in a non-professional setting, baseball is the most expensive sport because with basketball, especially in a city like New York, where there are courts literally every couple of blocks you go, all you need is $20. It'll get you a basketball from Dick's Sporting Goods or even Five Below. You can get $5 will get you a basketball. May not be a great basketball, but it'll be a basketball. And then you just go to any city park and you can play for hours. Football, all you need is a football. And I'm pretty sure all three of us remember the days of two-hand touch. And if you make it past that car over there, it's a first down. But baseball, you need bats, gloves, the ball itself, which are all not cheap. And then on top of it, you got to find somewhere to play. And we all know that, landscaping is a real thing. You can't play on a field where the grass is overgrown. And in a lot of these parks you go to that have baseball fields, they don't have bases. So most little leagues, the coaches bring their own bases. So from that standpoint, I think that's why, and I know this is a completely off topic, but I think that's why baseball is dying amongst inner city kids.
Yeah, here's the thing. I agree with you on the access part. I played baseball at the gas station across the street from my house. It was a Hess gas station, became a BP gas station. Like I said, we drew a strike zone on the wall. We literally measured out a strike zone, and we drew it on the wall, and we played baseball there. And it was mostly home run derby, but we played baseball there. Yeah, you need to buy a glove. I'll give you that much. But stickball doesn't use a bat. They use a stick.
Broomstick, yeah.
They use a broomstick. And last I checked, you can still go down to the store and get yourself one of those nice, super spongy white balls for about $2.
Oh, yeah.
And play some baseball with that.
Or do what I did as a kid and use a tennis ball.
Use a tennis ball, use a handball, right? Here's the thing. If you can hit a handball, you're going to be able to hit a baseball. Why? Because you're hitting a smaller target with a handball. If you can develop power with a sponge ball and a non-legal bat, you're going to be able to develop power with a baseball and an aluminum or a wooden bat. And don't tell me that it can't be done, because there are literally videos of kids practicing batting using bottle caps that are being slingshotted at them in the Dominican. Okay. The poorest families in the inner cities in New York City still have more money and more access to resources than some of these poorest families in some of these Caribbean and third world countries and non-economically advantageous countries. And yet we are seeing millions and millions and millions of kids learning how to play baseball in the Dominican, in South America, in Latin America, in other areas of the Caribbean, in other areas of the world where they have even less access to resources. So, yes, don't get me wrong, it is an expensive sport to play, okay? But in terms of having access to some form of being able to play some mutated form of what is the sport of baseball can be done in less expensive ways.
That could be just to preference this. That could be a topic for the next show. As far as how NFL, we're seeing how the NFL is progressing. They're starting to build, football fields and international waters and everything. Basketball, if you guys have followed the NBA draft, most of the first round have been all French guys, mostly. There hasn't really been too many Americans that went in the first round. So now, I guess to preference this, if Pete doesn't have another topic for us, to lead into the next episode for the next 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, is Major League Baseball kind of falling behind.
Yeah.
Part of that has to do with the commissioner, but is Major League Baseball falling behind with everyone else as far as not capitalizing on international places? Because like you said, a lot of these third world countries and a lot of the places where most of these players are coming from do not have fields to play on. They're playing in the street with, bottle caps, milk cartons, sticks, whatever they can find. But anything that they can emulate American baseball, they're using it. So should MLB strike now, like how NFL is and how NBA is, and go to these international places and build these places and build these stadiums almost, or fields, to where they can develop their crop of new talent? Because they went to London, and look how crazy London went for them, just for the Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. You can't tell me that there's not somebody in London that doesn't like baseball. They even love American football. As much as they talk crap about American football, they love it.
Well, to be fair, they did have a Great Britain team in the last World Baseball Classic.
That is true. But how often do we see that? We don't see that for another 4 years.
That's also very true.
Yeah. Right. So and before I hand it off to Pete, it's to say that who's to say the next top star doesn't come from a London or a
Czech Republic or an Israel.
A Czech Republic. Yeah, I don't want to use like Dominican Republic or Venezuela, because that's where most of these guys are coming from, or Nicaragua. Like who's to say that like somebody in Jamaica is not somebody who's a baseball fan, even though who's to say? Who's to say an African kid right now doesn't have dreams of being an MLB baseball player? So we'll just leave it at that. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, really quickly before we go to our final topic of the night, Alphonse, Lex2738 on Twitch said, Carlos Beltran, the most winningest manager in Mets.
It's history. Oh, man, Lex, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment.
So lastly, our last topic of the night, and we will definitely be talking more about this as we approach the All-Star break even more. But just going around the league here, as we said, we spoke a little bit about, we got into this just a little bit earlier on with the Yankees and the Mets, but Yankees probably are going to need to be buyers, I think, at the trade deadline. The Mets might actually be buyers as well. It seems like every single day the Dodgers are trying to be buyers, buying everybody. They can get their hands on. But anybody, and is Big Baby over here, Yerrr, what is up?
I guess we'll start off with one of the big rumors, two of the big rumors. Starting with the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are going to be sellers in this trade deadline market. It's just who's going to go. Is it going to be Bichette? Is it going to be Vlad? Is it going to be both? Who knows? The big rumor is Bichette. It will be on his way to LA, some way, somehow. That's the big rumor. Do they need him? At this current time, because of the injuries, I'd like to see it. In the long run, when everyone comes back, no. So there's that rumor. And then
Talk about the Blue Jays being sellers really quickly. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we last left this Blue Jays Yankee game, it was 7-5 in the bottom of the seventh. The Blue Jays had just hit 2 solo home runs in 2 successive innings. The Yankees then decided to go and score 2 runs in the 8th to make it 9-5, and then go on and score 7 runs in the top of the 9th inning. They are now up 16-5 against the Blue Jays. By the way, all but 5 of the runs the Yankees have scored tonight. So 9 of their 16 runs, not by the home run. They only had 2 home runs tonight, 2 run by Gleyber Torres and a 3-run shot by Juan Soto. The 7 runs in the 9th inning, a single, a double, a sac fly, a single, a double, and a single.
Love to see it.
Mets also on top 7-2 in the top of the 9th over the Houston Astros. So they might be breaking that 7-game win streak. Lindor, another RBI double there.
Hey, love to see it. I'm rooting for the Mets this season. Really am.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, I'm going to stick to what I said earlier on in a couple of episodes. I really feel like the Mets, if they stay the way they are right now, they can be a wild card team. But going back to the Blue Jays, the other big rumor, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been on the record and said in an interview he did in his home in DR that he would never join the Yankees. Tunes changed now. He understands, like, hey, this is a business. Yankees are in need of a first baseman. I'm sorry, Anthony Rizzo. It looks like your father time is catching up to you. I don't know if the Yankees go and make that move, but if you did, I wouldn't be mad at it. I don't know what we do to give it up. I don't know what they're asking for, but I wholeheartedly believe Bichette is definitely on his way. Whether he goes to LA, I don't know, but definitely Bichette is definitely on his way out.
So here's the question to kind of both of you before I go to Alphonse real quick, because you brought up Vlad Guerrero and the comment that he made that he actually would be willing to go to the Yankees after everything that he's said. If the choice you have, and let's assume that it's a 1-year thing. If you have a choice between going after Paul Goldschmidt or Vlad Guerrero Jr., who are you going after as the first baseman for the New York Yankees for the rest of this season?
Vlad, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Vlad has better numbers than Goldschmidt this year, and Vlad is much younger than Goldschmidt as well. If you're going to make a trade for a piece, you don't look in the past. You go forward. Vlad has way more miles ahead of them than Goldschmidt has. Yeah. I think Goldschmidt is up there in age, mid to late 30s. Not going to be around much longer.
38. Like 37, 38.
Turning 38. I don't want a near 40 player. And if you notice by his numbers, he's not the slugger that he once was even 2 years ago. So he's come a long way since that NL. He's fallen down a long way since that NL MVP season he had.
But to your point there, Goldschmidt might be the less expensive option over someone like a Vlad. You have to give up a little bit less. He is still a very good hitter, a professional hitter, if you so say. And that is something the Yankees could use. I don't want another home run hitter. I don't need another home run or bust type hitter in that Yankee lineup. I could use a professional hitter that could really solidify the middle of that lineup. Is still dangerous, and you know that if you put the pitch in the wrong place, Goldschmidt's going to have the power to turn on that pitch, especially at Yankee Stadium. And now imagine that lineup where you've got Volpe up top, Soto at 2, Judge at 3, Goldschmidt at 4, Gleyber at 5, and now you're starting to move that lineup down. Verdugo at 6, and then you keep going from there and there. I think I agree with you on the miles, on the age, on the ability, all of that with Vlad. But when I'm thinking about Vlad's probably going to cost me a couple of prospects. Probably going to cost me a couple of good top guys. Goldschmidt, we can make the case. He's older. He's not the player he once was. You probably want to unload him so he's not a burden on you. Versus, again, the Blue Jays don't have to get rid of Vlad.
No. I think the Blue Jays are in a predicament where they're in rebuild. So I think that's why they're becoming sellers. I think they're trying to get more for their farm system. I guess I can ask you both you guys this. So since we're still talking about the Yankees here, who would you trade off the Yankees? Because I know who I would trade.
Who are you getting rid of? Rizzo?
I don't know. See, part of me, because I'm such a Rizzo stan, part of me wants to keep Rizzo because I feel like he's still going to retire after this season. I don't think he signs anywhere else. I think this is probably his last season. He has nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, he's forever in history with the Cubs. So there's that. I think you try to trade Stanton.
Wow.
I think that's it hasn't been working out for him.
He's actually having a better year this year than he's had in recent years.
It has, but I think the overall grand scheme of things was to pair him up with, well, at the time Aaron Judge wasn't there yet. But when Aaron Judge got there, these were supposed to be your 1-2 hit, kind of like how him and Soto are. So now that you're seeing that Soto and Judge are clicking more, and Stanton is not really hitting that well in that 4 or 5 hole, it's not working out. At least in my eyes, it's not working out. Glaber, I've said this repeatedly on this pod. The only reason why I'm trading Glaber is because I don't want to go through the headache in the winter meetings. Because I don't want it to come down to Soto and Glaber. We know Soto's going to get offers. We know he's going to get. He's been keeping his options open with the Mets. He's been keeping his options open with the Yankees. And Soto has proven this before. His options are always on the table. He's never a guy to say, hey, I'm signing with this team at the end of the season. Just give me the pen. No, he is the businessman to say, let's see what happens. Let's see where other offers I'm getting. So if you take Glaber off the board, at least in my eyes, if you take Glaber off the board, you trade him now, you don't have that headache, and you can put your focus on re-signing Juan Soto. You have that extra bit of money to sign Juan Soto. Now, of course, when it comes down to Rizzo had his 2-year deal. That comes off the table. Now you got a little more money to play with it as well. So I would take that headache out of the Yankees organization. So between Stanton or Glaber, because I'm going to take Rizzo out of it because just my humble opinion, I don't think Rizzo's going to come back for another season. Maybe he signs elsewhere after that, or maybe he just retires. But between Stanton and Glaber, one of them. Glaber for just to get rid of the headache. Stanton because I don't think, even though the numbers have been looking pretty well for this season, I just don't think the grand scheme of things it's worked out overall throughout his Yankee career. That's just me.
Yeah, and again, you could also go after a third baseman and probably move LeMahieu full-time to first base if you don't want to go after, Goldschmidt, or he's not available, or if Vlad's not available. I would go after a third baseman, move LeMahieu over, less strain on his body playing first base than playing third base, that's for sure. You got guys like Jose Abreu out there in the market if you are going after a first baseman. You don't know if the Rockies are going to hold on to Ryan McMahon. And, so there's a bunch of issues. You also have a really good first baseman that might be on the market in Pete Alonso. So the Yankees could go after Alonso there. Well, I asked Alphonse a question at the Met game. And I'm going to ask him again live on this show. Alphonse, if you had to lose Pete Alonso, but guarantee you get Juan Soto, do you do it?
In that case, yes, because Soto's younger. He's more consistent. Pete Alonso's very home run or bust. I'd be a fool, but I mean, it would be a difficult. It'd be like trading your favorite baseball card that has all the sentimental value in the world for something that's worth more and is more rare and costs more money. And somebody's just gonna be like, if you give me yours, that means all this to you. I'll give you mine. Mine is worth more, but I know that you have an emotional attachment to yours, so I'm gonna take it from you. But I would hate to see Pete go, but I would give him up for Soto.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Alphonse Stevens is not a true Met fan. He will get rid of Pete Alonso for Juan Soto. We're going to clip that, put it all over social media. We're going to send that to Pete Alonso, who once famously gave you a great opening for your former podcast, the Metropolitan Report. But now he's going to have to know that you would easily get rid of him for Juan Soto.
It's business.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know Grizz had to step away to take care of something really quickly, but we will be back before the 4th of July weekend. We wish everybody a happy and healthy 4th of July weekend. If I'm looking out here, our next episode, we'll be back on Thursdays moving forward. We'll likely be back right after the 4th of July weekend, unless we decide to go 4th of July, but more than likely we'll be back July 11th, the next Thursday. Actually, we might not be back July 11th. We'll keep you updated now that I'm looking at the calendar. But we'll be back with episode 8 within the next 2 weeks for the Territorian. Alphonse Stevens, self-made man, Grizz. Yankees win 16-5. Mets win 7-2. Mets continuing that streak. Let's go, Grimace. Yankees busting out in a big way. I am the voice of a generation, Pete Rosado. As always, we'll see you on the next episode of the Dog Days of Baseball podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.